everyone. This is DerekJ Speaks, and today we are bringing you a review of WWE Friday Night SmackDown from June 17th, 2022, live from the Target Center in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Kinda. This is not really a traditional review of this week's episode of SmackDown because, let's be honest, there are far more salacious, important things going on in the world of WWE than SmackDown, a show that really has not been all that interesting for several months now. And tonight, it was one of the highest trending topics all over and was of great interest to many people, myself included, because of one central figure that was going to appear, that being the chairman and CEO of WWE, Vincent Kennedy McMahon, or should I say former chairman and CEO. Of course, the big news coming out about Vince McMahon this week. All that news from a few days ago, plus some of the news of today. And we found out earlier that Vince would be appearing on SmackDown. And he did. He came out. He walked to the ring. He got in the ring, got on the microphone, and proceeded to say absolutely nothing. Nothing to address the situation going on. Nothing to address his current status. Nothing. He said a little bit, then he left. That was it. So clearly Vince McMahon is not overly fazed by what's going on right now. And the question is, should he be? I pose that question to a lot of you. I think he should be. I think we all should be quite interested in what's going on. Because unless you're living under a rock, I think many of you already know, this past Wednesday, we learned, not from Fightful, not from The Observer, not from any other random wrestling news site. No, we learned from WSJ.com, the Wall Street Journal. We learned that members of the WWE Board of Directors began conducting an investigation. I believe they said it was in April that they began investigating. They began an investigation of a secret $3 million payment from Vince McMahon. A payment that apparently went to a former paralegal who worked for the company for several years, whom also apparently was having an affair with Vince McMahon. The article stated that this paralegal, who was a woman, she began working for WWE several years ago. She started out at a $100,000 salary, and it increased to $200,000 after their relationship began. This email that the article states, there was an anonymous email sent, or not really anonymous, but there was a member of the board who sent an email to the rest of the members, and the email also alleged that the relationship with Vince and this woman, this paralegal, was consensual, but that Vince, I don't really know how to say this in a very diplomatic way. I can really just only say it how it stated in the email on the article, apparently. He sent this woman to the way of John Laurinaitis, of course, who we all know, the Executive Vice President of Talent Relations, with the voice and everything. So I don't know what kind of things were going on with Vince and this woman and apparently John Laurinaitis, but whatever it was, it got to the point where she left the company. She quit. Whatever it was, she left. And as she left, Vince and his old trusted lawyer, Jerry McDevitt, ended up paying her millions of dollars. Now, whether that was the $3 million that was reported all up front, or it was in installments or payments over time, the report suggests that through this interaction, $3 million was paid to this woman. Now, we did not know her name on Wednesday or Thursday, but apparently someone was able to get her name. I'm not going to put it out there. I have no interest in putting her name out there. I just hope for her sake that she is well. I hope for the sake of her mental health and just her own sanity that she is doing fine and that she is in a position to be safe and healthy and everything like that. But I'm not going to put her name out there. Quite frankly, I don't even remember it anyway, but I'm not going to dig into trying to search out for her name and put her name out there because I do not believe that is fair for her. But as for Vince and John Laurinaitis and WWE, apparently this was a situation that was big enough to warrant an investigation being conducted by the members of the WWE Board of Directors. And I wish I could come on here and say, oh, this is shocking. I am shocked. I'm stunned. This is out of nowhere. This is not out of nowhere. This is not shocking. This is not stunning. This is not necessarily like, oh, I knew this was going to happen. No, but it's nothing that's really surprising because it's nothing that is brand new. We have heard stories about Vince McMahon and his nasty little habits, I guess we should say, not even over the years, over the decades. It was decades ago that there were news and reports of allegations of Mr. McMahon, of Vince McMahon, sleeping around with women, especially talent on the roster. So that's not really much of a shock. Him cheating on his wife, Linda, that's not necessarily a shock, although there's been rumors going around that they might not be technically husband and wife anymore. There were rumors going around this week that Vince and Linda don't even live together anymore. So I don't know much more to it than that. I'm not going to really get into that much of it. But the announcement of the investigation came out on Wednesday. That was the big talking point of Wednesday. And we all wondered what is going to come from this. Is it going to be just something very quick? Hide it under the rug? What's going to happen? Was there a potential link to this and the Stephanie McMahon news that came out about a month ago, where Stephanie McMahon came out and she announced that she was taking a leave of absence from WWE to be with her family? Of course, at the time, we thought that was just a very simple, straightforward thing. She wants to be with her family and all that. Of course, we knew what happened with Triple H and how traumatic an event that was. Many people thought it was connected to that. Then we started to see rumors and news come out that maybe there was a little bit more to it. Maybe Stephanie was not doing her job as well as was expected of her to do, and she was indirectly sent home by multiple members of the board, but mainly her father, who must not have been overly impressed with the work that she was doing. But there were word going around, was this a link to it? Maybe she knew, was something connected there? And the biggest piece of speculation was, would this lead to Vince being let go, being relieved of his duties from WWE, or at the very least, stepping down as chairman? Well, we got the answer today, on this day, Friday, June 17th. I first heard about this, again, not on some random wrestling site. And this is not me diminishing stuff like Fightful and The Observer and NoDQ.com and all these other sites that I use as references to big news reports. But just to point out that this was not just some random wrestling rumor and speculation going on. This is worldwide big news. I learned about this from Bloomberg.com. It was also reported on CNN. It was also on WWE's own corporate page. So this was a big news story here. One of the biggest stories of the entire year. And this is a year of huge WWE news and huge wrestling news overall. But we found out today, early in the morning, that Vince McMahon announced that he would be stepping down from his position as the chairman and CEO of WWE. And that in his place, for the interim time being, would be his daughter, Stephanie McMahon, who would be taking the role of CEO and chairwoman of WWE. The article that I read on Bloomberg.com stated that Vince would still retain some responsibilities as far as the company's creative content was concerned, meaning he will still most likely have input on the creative direction of the television shows like Raw, SmackDown, NXT, the pay-per-views, all that stuff. So he still has some responsibilities and duties tied in with that much. But as far as, I guess, other doings in the company, that is now the responsibility, for now, of Stephanie McMahon. In addition to that news, we also learned that the board of directors in WWE, they announced that they had begun engaging with an independent legal counsel to assist them in their investigation, and they were working with a third party in order to conduct a full review of the company's compliance program, the human resources function, and the overall culture of the company as a whole. So this is big. This ain't just some, oh, it'll pass. It's just random news of the week. You know, it's big for today, but in a few days, it'll blow over. And hey, it's only been 2 days. You never know. Maybe by next week, we all look foolish and this will all be completely over. The investigation will be complete. It won't prove a thing. Vince will be right back in the same position that he was, and this will be a long forgotten distant memory. Something tells me this is not a situation like that. Something tells me this is a big freaking deal. And Vince stepping down as chairman and CEO is a big deal. So now Vince is out of power. Stephanie McMahon is in control. And we have to wonder what's going to come from this. Is there going to be any significant changes to the overall product going forward? My guess is no, because of that little part of the article that stated that Vince McMahon will still have input on the creative content of the company. And again, that means the shows, the writing of the shows, I'm sure he'll still have some responsibilities tied in with that. He'll probably still have some input on the creative direction of the WWE programs. So him stepping down and Stephanie taking over, I don't think will have any direct impact on that whatsoever. There's also a possibility it could have an impact on other aspects of WWE. Very coincidentally, we had a news report leak out today that apparently Stephanie McMahon and Kevin Dunn do not really get along all that much. Of course, Kevin Dunn is the one behind the overall production of the WWE, of the shows. He's the one responsible for all the shaky cams and the rapid camera cuts that are quick enough to give you a potential headache and seizure. Apparently, he and Stephanie don't get along all that much. And I'm not really sure what an interim CEO and chairwoman has as far as power over firing and hiring people, but maybe, perhaps, there is a possibility that this could be bye-bye for Kevin Dunn, so long as Stephanie McMahon is in control of the show or in control of the company. We don't know. I overall do not think that there will be any significant changes right out the gate. I really don't. I personally feel as though Stephanie McMahon's place as the temporary interim CEO of WWE is really in name only. And I got a good sense of how Vince McMahon himself feels about this whole situation just based on how he behaved on this show on SmackDown. Now, of course, that could just be that he was playing up the character. Apparently earlier, Alex Sherman on Twitter, he posted a report from CNBC that Vince would appear on the show. It was also reported earlier that Vince McMahon himself would appear live on SmackDown. And Alex Sherman on Twitter posted a report from CNBC that Vince would appear on the show, but he would do so in character, in the Mr. McMahon character. And he would give some type of reason to explain his absence going forward. Not necessarily his absence from television, because Vince McMahon has not been an on-screen television character for several weeks now. We've seen him interact with Theory on Raw, but that really has not been happening for several weeks. So surely it wouldn't have been for that reason. But apparently the word going around was that Vince would show up on the show in character as Mr. McMahon and not really talk about anything from Vince McMahon's perspective about anything going on here. But all of this news going on these past several days, all this news coming in today, seemingly something new coming out every hour. Something brand new here, an update there, all this stuff heading into SmackDown. A SmackDown show that a week ago was being built around the return of Roman Reigns defending his Universal Championship, or his undisputed Universal WWE Championship, against Matt Riddle. That was the big headline, that was the big draw for the show this week. But all of a sudden, now with this story coming out, it was Vince McMahon. Vince McMahon's going to be on the show. He's going to appear live. He's going to speak to the WWE Universe. What's he going to say? What's going to happen? What's going to go down? And, oh boy, we should have known better. So, we're about 20 minutes in, so we might as well start talking about the show. So the show opened up with Mr. McMahon. He came out, the No Chance in Hell theme song. That was funny. I saw a few people earlier in the day. Big Swole, the former AEW star, Big Swole, I think she was one of the ones who I saw tweet out, boy, when that No Chance in Hell theme song plays and you see Vince McMahon strutting his way down to the ring with that theme song blaring in the background, it's going to hit a little different. And that was the case here. But Vince came out, got a very interesting reaction, got a very heartfelt standing ovation, basically. Got a round of applause as he was coming out, the usual big pop for Vince McMahon. So clearly these people were excited to see Vince and excited to hear what he had to say. Vince came out, he got in the ring, he talked about how it was a privilege for him to be here in Minneapolis in front of the WWE Universe. He mentioned the signature, the same signature that's at the beginning of every single WWE show, the then, now, forever together tagline thing. And Vince mentioned those words. He said those 4 important words: then, now, forever, and most importantly, together. Then he welcomed everyone to SmackDown, and he threw away the microphone, and he left. They cut to black. They showed the SmackDown intro and immediately cut into a in-ring promo from Matt Riddle. And that was it. There was never another word of Vince McMahon for the rest of the show. There was no sign of Vince, nothing. Apparently, there was a report going on that Vince backstage, he was seen to be in a very jovial mood. He was seen laughing and kind of joking around with people in the backstage area, and he was overall in good spirits, and that was clearly shown here. This is just my own speculation, but I look at a segment like this and I look at an appearance from Vince McMahon like this, and I see a man who is unfazed by a lot of the stories going on. He is unfazed. He is not moved at all. It could also be a case of put on a brave face, put on a smile, go out there in front of the crowd and show yourself and make yourself look to be feeling better than what is really going on right now. But it could also be a situation where Vince McMahon just simply is not fazed by this situation, because as I mentioned before, this is not something that is entirely brand new for Vince McMahon to experience and go through. So it could be a combination of all those things. It could be one or the other. We don't know for sure. The only one who knows for sure how they feel about this situation with Vince McMahon is Vince McMahon himself. Also, what I saw on display in that ring was a man trolling these fans, myself included, into watching this show to draw in some damn ratings, because this was as clear as day a big ratings ploy as I've ever seen. This was just to stir up some attraction and stir up some interest in watching SmackDown tonight, to see Vince McMahon and hear what he has to say. And then he promptly walked out and said absolutely nothing of substance. So kudos to him. I am man enough to admit I fell for it. Hook, line, and sinker. I even tweeted out this was the most excited and interested that I had been for SmackDown in months. I have not consistently watched this show in a very, very long time, because there is nothing about the show that makes me want to watch it. One of the only things that made me want to watch this show was Roman Reigns, and Roman Reigns has been on an extended vacation for several weeks now. So he wasn't even on the show. He was on the show tonight, of course, but for the past several weeks he has not been, and I have not had any desire to watch, because what was on the show was not of great interest to me. So hearing the news about Vince McMahon, and of course hearing that he would appear on the show tonight, that sparked my interest a little bit. And we saw him, and we saw that it led to absolutely nothing. So there you go. Apparently there was an anonymous WWE talent, a current talent, who remained anonymous, but they sent a little news item over to Fightful.com, and they gave their own opinion on Vince's promo here, calling it tone deaf and embarrassing. And apparently a former talent, also remained anonymous, gave their own thoughts on what Vince had to say, and kind of paraphrasing here, I'm not giving the direct quote of what they said, but essentially they said that they're glad that the promo did not go on too long, because they don't know if they would have been able to handle the bullshit that Vince McMahon was peddling. And their biggest point was that this showed that Vince has no accountability for his actions, even actions that directly are his fault or at his own fault. He showed no signs of accountability. Credibility is a whole other issue, but he showed no signs of accountability. And that's their thoughts. My own thoughts are this was just a ratings ploy, and Vince does not seem fazed by this at all. And that's not me really looking too deep into it. I can see it. And knowing Vince McMahon, knowing this man that we have seen for years and decades, and seeing how he has reacted to different stories like this that have come out about him, and how he has been able to always find a way out of trouble every single time. He manages to worm his way out of trouble every single time. So I can imagine that he does not feel like he is sweating this too much. Although I do not believe it's gotten to, well, there has been points where he took a step down. Of course, the whole steroid trial back in the 90s. There was a fear that Vince McMahon would go to jail at one point in the 90s during that whole fiasco there, and maybe a sexual harassment allegation charge back then as well. So I don't know what is going to come from this, but for now, as far as we know, Vince McMahon is stepping down and Stephanie McMahon has taken his place. The same Stephanie McMahon who left to who took a leave of absence about a month ago, she's now right back in. Triple H, he does not have anywhere near as much power as he once did, but he's still hanging around. Of course, the ever savvy Nick Khan is still in the ranks there. So we'll see. Apparently John Laurinaitis was nowhere to be found backstage, so maybe he's in hiding. I don't know. There hasn't been a whole lot of news about what the future holds for him. Maybe him not being anywhere backstage shows what the future holds for him. But for now, there's not really much that we can do about this. We can only just wait and see. Take the wait and see approach to this and what's going to come from it. I'm sure more news will break maybe throughout the weekend, but in the coming weeks, I'm sure we will learn more and more. And we will see just how temporary this leave of absence for Vince is and how temporary Stephanie's role as CEO and chairwoman is. You just never know. You never know with situations like this what's going to happen. But that's it for that. But shockingly enough, this was not the only big story that was coming out on Friday. Earlier in the week, I believe even on the same day that this Vince McMahon announcement came out, this news about Vince on Tuesday or Wednesday or whenever it was, Raj Giri on Twitter posted that he was 100% sure on it, but he had a good inclination that Sasha Banks was released from her WWE contract. And then today, about an hour before SmackDown went on the air, WrestleVotes went onto Twitter and they basically corroborated the story. They said the word going around backstage is that the situation with Sasha Banks and her status with the company pretty much lined up with Raj Giri's reports, and they used the words to describe it as accurate. And while there has been no official statement or confirmation from WWE, from Sasha Banks or anything or anyone, the word going around backstage from apparently some very reputable names and faces and figures is there is a strong belief that Sasha Banks has been released. Not that she's leaving, not that she will be released. There is a belief that she has already been released. So we'll see if anything will come from that. Of course, we know the whole situation with her and Naomi walking out on Raw about a month ago after a disagreement over creative for that week's show of Raw and what the direction was going to be for her, Naomi, and the women's tag team titles that were vacated and was announced would be held up in a tournament and have now promptly been discarded and have just they're on the opposite island of Roman. Roman's on the island of relevancy. The women's tag team titles were shipped off to the island of irrelevancy. It's just across the pond. It's right over there. And they've been right over there. Quite frankly, they've been over there the entire time. They've been over there since they were first introduced in 2019. So we don't know what the status of Naomi is, and quite frankly, we don't know for sure what the status of Sasha Banks is because nothing has been confirmed nor denied. But apparently, and I trust Raj Giri, many of you probably don't. Many of you are probably listening to me rattle off these names and these Twitter pages like, oh, you trust these dirt sheets, they don't know anything. People like Raj Giri and the folks at Wrestle Votes and Fightful and people like this, Sean Ross Sapp, they're pretty reliable. They don't get every single thing right, but for the most part, they get enough right. And they are very reliable. They're very good at their jobs. Meltzer and people like that, they're very good at what they do. They've been doing this for years. They know people on the inside. There are people on the inside in WWE who feeds news to these people. They aren't just pulling these news items and these reports out of their asses. They hear from people within the company because, believe it or not, there are people within that company who feed these news items to these journalists. So they know what they're talking about. And we will not know for sure what the situation with Sasha Banks is until we get some type of confirmation. But if enough people are saying things, if it talks like a duck and quacks like a duck, then Sasha Banks might have been released from WWE. And all I can say to that is it's a damn shame that it got to this point. But Sasha Banks is a star. She is a huge star. She is one of the best women's wrestlers and overall wrestlers in the world. She has been for several years. I know she is a very polarizing figure for many people. Many people love her. Many people can't stand her. But she has personally been one of my favorite talents in WWE for several years. She is fantastic in the ring. She has a ton of charisma. She is drop dead gorgeous, and she has a huge personality that would be a huge coup for any wrestling promotion to pick up out there. She is a main event caliber talent who has not always been presented in a main event caliber way in WWE. She's had her moments to shine here and there, but there has never been a significant push behind her to the level that you see with Charlotte Flair or Becky Lynch or other women that have come and gone in that company. Some women who are far less talented than Sasha Banks is. So if this news is correct, if this news is at all accurate, I wish Sasha the best. And whatever her future holds, whether that is more Hollywood trips outside of The Mandalorian and a few things here and there, or if she finds herself in a company like AEW or anywhere, I know she will thrive. So that's my thoughts on that. As for the rest of SmackDown, I mean, outside of all this news, there was nothing really overly exciting. We saw Madcap Moss beat Happy Corbin in a last laugh match. So hopefully that feud is finally over. And we had Pat McAfee on commentary get up and lead the Minneapolis crowd in laughing Corbin out of the arena. And then as Corbin was leaving, the New Day laughed at him. And that led into the New Day's match where they beat Jinder Mahal and Shanky, who has been a dancing fool on TV for several weeks now. So we got some Shanky dancing on this show. We had some Money in the Bank qualifying updates. We saw Raquel Rodriguez beat Shayna Baszler in a Money in the Bank qualifying match. So she's heading to Money in the Bank. Sheamus and Drew McIntyre, who wrestled to a no contest on SmackDown last week, had a great brawl. It went unresolved as for who would qualify for Money in the Bank. And then on this show, both men were out there in the ring with Adam. Can't remember. Adam Pearce. I just completely blanked on his name for a second. My apologies. Adam Pearce was out there with both Sheamus and Drew McIntyre and announced that both men would qualify for Money in the Bank. Max Dupree, of course the former LA Knight, was on the show. They holding off on revealing who his maximum male models are. So that was a bit of a waste. And we had some announcements for matches next week. We had a few Money in the Bank qualifiers announced. Shotzi Blackheart taking on Aaliyah in a qualifying match. Sami Zayn and Shinsuke Nakamura in a qualifying match. And a rematch for the Intercontinental Championship between Gunther and Ricochet. Of course, Gunther beat Ricochet for the IC title last week on SmackDown in a terrific match. I did see that match. I don't watch a lot of SmackDown, but I did see that match, heard enough good stuff about it, and went back and watched it. Great match. So next week, they're going for round 2. Would have preferred it be on the pay-per-view so the IC title can finally be defended on a pay-per-view for the first time in over a year, but such is life. So that was about it for all the other stuff. Now on to the main event. So outside of the Vince McMahon news and the Sasha Banks speculation, the other big thing on this night was the hyped up WWE Undisputed Universal Championship match with Riddle challenging the returning Roman Reigns. Roman back from his little extended vacation, back on TV for the first time in weeks, and defending his championship for the first time since he won it at WrestleMania. Apparently, when you beat Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania like that, you inhabit his powers of becoming a part-time champion and barely ever showing up. So we had the match with Roman and Riddle on this show. Of course, Riddle dedicated this match to his fallen partner, Randy Orton, who was what I thought storyline injured at the hands of the Bloodline, but apparently was legitimately injured. Not necessarily in that attack that happened, but the fact that he has been nursing a back injury for a long time that, once again, according to the dirt sheets and according to some news outlets, is expected to keep Randy out of action for the remainder of the year. So that rumored expected championship match with Randy Orton and Roman Reigns for SummerSlam is off the table. And that is why, along with a few other reasons, we are getting the new match that we are getting at SummerSlam that was announced by the end of this night. So we'll get into that in a second. As for the match with Riddle and Roman, it was a really good match. This has been the most serious that they have pushed Riddle since coming up to the main roster. And of course, Roman Reigns is great in the ring. You had Riddle channeling his inner Orton. Of course, Roman was kind of taunting Randy Orton at certain points in the match, but Riddle was channeling his inner Randy Orton. He was hitting some of Orton's most patented moves, his vintage Randy Orton collection. He, at one point, did the backdrop on Roman on the announce table, got him back in the ring, hit him with a draping DDT. He was going for the RKO, but Roman managed to block it, hit him with a Superman punch, only good for a 2 count. Roman gets back up, he goes for the spear, and mid-spear, mid-motion, Riddle catches Roman with a clean RKO out of nowhere. Very close near fall, but it was a near fall, only good for a 2 count. Riddle gets back up, goes up top, comes down with the floating bro, barely hits it, but he hit enough of it. He gets up, he starts pounding the mat, going for another RKO. He goes for it, but then once again, Roman blocks it. Roman hits the ropes. Riddle on the opposite end goes and hits the ropes. He's going for some kind of springboard move, but when he turns back around, Roman catches him with a beautiful, damn near picture perfect spear in midair, takes him down, gets the 1-2-3, and Roman's very first championship defense is a successful one. To the surprise of absolutely no one, Roman Reigns is still the undisputed Universal Champion. After the match, he got on the mic and he said there's no one left, which is something that he has said several times before and has remained true because there is no one left. So he was saying that. He said before that when he comes in, he's going to wreck people and he's going to leave. And that's exactly what he's doing here. So he told Minneapolis to acknowledge him. He went to leave. The Usos had come out with him. Of course, the wise man, Paul Heyman, was out there with him. They all go to leave. And then we hear Brock Lesnar's theme music. The place goes nuts for the hometown boy. Cowboy Brock is still around. He comes out with the cowboy hat, the beard, and the ponytail, the braid, whatever. He's getting in the ring. Roman tells his cousins to back down. He tells them to leave the ring. And so it's just Roman and Brock face to face. They stare at each other for a little bit. And then Brock extends his hand out to Roman to shake it. And apparently all that extended time off for Roman has made him an idiot, because he goes to oblige and shake Brock's hand. And of course, when he does, Brock just suckered him in, got him up, hit him with an F5. The Usos immediately rushed in, but they get taken down by clotheslines from Brock, and each Uso, Jimmy and Jay, both get laid out with an F5. And then, shortly after the show went off the air, WWE confirmed on their own Twitter that it is official. It will be Brock Lesnar challenging Roman Reigns for the undisputed WWE Universal Championship at SummerSlam in a last man standing match. So Randy Orton being out with a back injury, Cody Rhodes being out with the torn pec and being gone for months, no one else on the roster really having any credibility, and the overall quality of the shows being as low as they are, all accounts for them falling back on the old sword, that same sword that's on the chest of Brock Lesnar, and bringing him back to once again have a pay-per-view main event with Roman Reigns for the championship. Because if it ain't broke, break it, but then still use it again. The crowd in Minneapolis, I mean, it's Brock's hometown, so of course they went crazy for him. Of course they went crazy for him laying out Roman Reigns like this, but they liked it. And I'm sure there's many other people out there, many people, who have no issue seeing this. Brock Lesnar is a big star. Roman Reigns is a big star. I like Brock Lesnar. I like Roman Reigns. But I am sick to death of seeing Brock Lesnar versus Roman Reigns. I saw several people point this out on Twitter tonight, but I saw it even around WrestleMania time, and it is true. Brock Lesnar versus Roman Reigns is the new John Cena versus Randy Orton, where they confuse quantity with quality. Just because you have a bunch of matches against each other does not make it a great feud. Just because you have a bunch of matches together does not mean you will automatically always have great matches together. Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar have essentially had the exact same match for years. This isn't even an issue of, oh, we saw this at WrestleMania this year. They have main evented 3 WrestleManias against each other before. They fought in 2 different matches in Saudi Arabia. They have had countless other matches on other pay-per-views. We're getting it at SummerSlam now. They wrestled in the main event of SummerSlam several years ago. But again, injuries, they suck and they can mess up your plans. But I don't have that much sympathy for WWE. This is a problem of their own making. This is an indictment on this company for their lack and inability to create new stars. This is a problem that has plagued this company for years now. They were doing right by people like Cody Rhodes before he got injured, but that's a rare exception. So, we're once again in this position of getting Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns last man standing. You would think, hey, got the bells and whistles of all the weapons and stuff. Maybe that'll make it exciting. It's Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns again. How exciting can it possibly be? But again, I'm sure many of you listening right now probably are very excited for that, and I'm happy for you. I hope you enjoy it. And quite frankly, the Brock Lesnar Roman Reigns stuff heading into WrestleMania was the best thing about SmackDown. And it clearly showed once WrestleMania was over and both men were no longer around, because there was nothing left of interest on SmackDown. Now, even still, not really much. But we'll see. But that's enough for me. I've talked enough about all of this stuff. If there's any other big major breaking news coming out, maybe I'll cover it if it's big enough to warrant me talking about it. But yeah, I have no idea what the future holds for Vince McMahon, for Sasha Banks, and anyone else who I've talked about in this video. I have no idea what the future holds. Only they really know. But this is a crazy, crazy time. This Vince news, Sasha and Naomi walking out, Stephanie taking a leave of absence, then coming back. Shane McMahon was sent home earlier this year. Cody Rhodes returning, and then him wrestling with a torn pec. Summer, or Money in the Bank, I should say, almost taking place at a stadium, and then they had to come crawling back to MGM Grand Arena. Over in AEW, the stuff with MJF, CM Punk winning the championship, and then having to go away because of an injured foot. There's a lot of stuff going on this year, and it is crazy. I probably didn't even name half of it. But thank you for listening. If you like what you see, if you like what you hear, go ahead, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit that bell, and be notified of new videos when I come on here and drop a random new video whenever you least expect it. Of course, like I said, subscribe to the channel at DerekJ Speaks. Follow me on Twitter at DerekJ Speaks, and look me up on SoundCloud and Podbean at DerekJ Speaks, where you can listen to the audio on the go, download it for your own leisure, all that good stuff. As for me, next time I'll talk to you guys might be in a few weeks for AEW New Japan Forbidden Door. So, until next time, take care, everyone.